Let us pass the floor to the fourth block and for our discussions that we dedicated to development of industrial parks, and now we'll be introduced to those people that had those industrial parks that somehow became a participant of the projects that have been implemented within the activity of the industrial parks in our region and in the neighborhood regions. The industrial park is this synergy of research and development and technical resources aimed at the implementation of big industrial initiatives and projects. While this topic within this discussion we'll be talking about with Dmytro Kiselevsky, member of the parliament, deputy head of the fraction of R&D. He will join us online and offline. Please meet Mykola Vavrishchuk, deputy head of Khmelnytsky City Council. Mr. Vavrishchuk. Please greet Svetlana Yerva, director of the municipal company Vinnytsia Industrial Park. Please join us on the seat. Katerina Savchuk, director of Korostensky Zavod of oh no, she's missing. And let me invite to be a moderator Mr. Volodymyr Panchak from the Key Strategies. He's a managing partner. So industrial parks, these are industrial clusters for joint activity of companies that would aim at development of industrial potential of Ukraine, please. Good afternoon. Well, as far as I understand that we are working for YouTube and for our YouTube audience, and of course after lunch it is very difficult to get together because everybody continues to communicate, and let us thank for that our organizing team. Because practically all the new friends we meet here at forums, and it's very important, really, it's crucial. Let me start presentation with myself. I will start not to boast, but just to remind that in 2011 there was a book published about special economic areas, and Ukraine at that time already had 10 years of experience in creating special regimes, special mode zones. And yesterday I was talking to one of the representatives from the municipality, and it turned out that that there are people in Ukraine that don't know anything about industrial parks. And one of the consultants mentioned, one of the facilities mentioned that there is 4 people out of 100 that don't know that happen not to know anything about Coca-Cola. So industrial parks are not so popular in Ukraine as Coca-Cola, but that is why let me start for my online and offline audience that we will be talking about industrial parks as creation in accordance within the framework of legislation of 2012. There are more than 30 territories, lands and areas where there is a special economic mode with benefits in accordance with the law of Ukraine dated 2012. My first question will be to Mr. Dmytro Kiselevsky. I don't know whether he's online or offline. Good afternoon. Mr. Kiselevsky is online. I'm pleased to see you here online. That's a principal developer and or initiator of the law 16.1. We'll have several questions that I would like to address to you. So one of them, how difficult it was to prepare to draft this law 16.9. And how it was to implement this law, and also for the offline audience, for those who haven't been present at our forum, but this law was mentioned by the governor, by the mayor, by the head of the regional council, and representatives from Kropyvnytsky, Zhytomyr, Khmelnytsky, everybody was referring the industrial parks. So we would be referring, but still we would like to ask you about this legislative draft also that's already a law.
Thank you, Volodymyr Hryhorovich. Can you hear me well? Yes, everything is okay. Good. Okay, that's great. So, once again, I'll introduce myself. I'm Dmytro Kiselyevsky. I'm the deputy head of the Economic Committee of the Verkhovna Rada. This year, Parliament has really made a very useful and maybe strategic activity. We really started to put the real content and the real tool of the economic development as industrial park. So, what is industrial park? Maybe there are those 4 people who don't know what it is. If speaking in simple words, this is an office center for industrial production. It's a plot of land of the industrial land which has a connection with the roads and railways, where you can quite quickly make a building and actually start the production and start the business. Really, in 2012 or 2013, a law has been adopted on industrial parks, and it's been functional for many years. As a result, it's 51 registered industrial park, which apart from 1 or 2 are simply a legal entity. There is a field with high grass, and there is not even 1 building built on that. At the same time, in our neighbors, both friendly and unfriendly neighbors, industrial parks, they give really good, fruitful results. For example, in Hungary, 30% of GDP is formed in industrial parks, since the economy of Turkey and the industry has grown on industrial parks and orangeries. And actually in Poland, again, they work quite effectively. In Slovakia and also in South Korea, industrial parks, so practically half of the employment is covered by industrial parks. So really it's a functional tool. So why does it work with them and it doesn't work with us? The reason is quite simple, as the absence of stimuli. An industrial park becomes to be very appealing for the creation of the production only at the cost of various forms of state support which the investor gets from this industrial park. So what does our foreign actually partner says? There shouldn't be no actually state support, but well, yes, it does work. It actually works vice versa. So we should be working like they do and not actually listen to what they say. So currently there are no state stimuli for the industrial parks, and starting from this week, we've finally began to change it and amend it. We've approved this draft law that presupposes financial and institutional stimuli for the industrial parks. What does it have? The ability of financing from the budget, of getting the infrastructure and networks to the industrial park, the possibility to compensate the connecting to the networks within the parks, and the possibility to compensate some bank interests and bank rates on the loans. And actually for the next 4 years, we are planning to presuppose at least 2 billion hryvnia expenditures on the implementation of the budget programs of supporting the industrial parks. Another thing, we've also broadened the land plots and types of land plots that can be used for industrial parks. It was from 15 to 70 hectares, and now it's from 10 to 1,000 hectares. And we also presuppose the creation of a state body that would be involved in the development of industrial parks, and some procedural issues which are quite important, but I don't think that we should stop on it right now. And so that now nobody has some certain desire to maybe abuse this law, so that we have certain preventative measures. We have body that should be physically and legally a legal entity be located on the territory of this industrial park. And so there are also the processing industry, the waste processing, a part of burial, R&D development and telecommunication. The direct prohibition is for the placement of gambling facilities and the production of excise goods apart from cars. And now there is a whole decision of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, the fact that now the industrial park is put into the register. As you have already noted, that this draft law is part of the package of 3 draft laws, and the one that has been adopted and passed, it contains the financial institutional stimuli, and the other 2 have been developed and registered, and they have other stimuli that will have a chance to talk about it. If you do not disconnect, because now the few speakers will answer the questions, and if you're going to stay online with us, we are going to listen to you. If no, then let's speak right away. What do you have with the time? How are you with time? No, I will gladly listen to other speakers and participate in the discussion. Okay, then I address the speakers. So the words of the speakers and actually my words, and actually you can express your thoughts because practically we have a practical panel as the moderator has announced us, and actually now I'm very happy because I'm now passing the floor to answer the questions to Svetlana Yarovam. Svetlana Yarovam, the question is which tools have been used and are used by your innovative center for attracting the investors, because the legislators very often are in a certain euphoria or some euphoric state, because if the law is passed that means that everything is going to be fine, and then at the local level we find out that we can't implement something or we can't get something, and well, now simply like repeat it once again. There is like a sort of really very important law in terms of, in the context that for 7 years we've had like really like sort of the Ministry of Finance has simply ignored and perceive, and the committee of the Verkhovna Rada, and really like it has happened, and 2 billion hryvnias even more can be allocated for the infrastructure, and the deputies can vote for that. But you have your own tools apart from those legislative tools that are given to you and sent to you by the legislator. So what are these tools and what is the efficiency of these tools?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm glad to greet you here at the forum, those who remain, who are with us online and offline. Let me thank the deputies that they offer to add additional stimulus, and it's very important for us, to those who lead the industrial parks, for those who run in the municipalities, for this economic sectors, and it's very difficult to compete with our Eastern European neighbors who have very good stimulus and benefits from the state. Well, talking about the answer to your question about the tools, well, we use all possible tools or solutions. We are looking for solutions. We are looking for investors either in north or southeast or west, and with now we have been talking about transferring production facilities from China to Eastern Europe, and some of the companies are looking for the land plots in Eastern Europe. Why not Ukraine? Why not Vinnytsia? And we are hoping that these companies will be registering in Ukraine and paying taxes to Ukraine, and will be offering working place to Ukrainians. What are the tools? Well, there are lots of tools that can be used. That's like in sales. Like you make an extract and you start working either cold contacts or warm contacts. You can be communicating for 3 months with investors and have warm friendly relationships, and then you read a newspaper article that they have been investing in another city. So it's quite a huge work, and there is no one single solution. If we talk about our management company, that it has been functioning within and under Vinnytsia City Council. Vinnytsia City Council, they have been the client for building Vinnytsia technological parks. These are two different two parks, industrial parks and technical parks, and there is a huge difference, and we'll talk more about it. So there is no one solution how to work with investors. That's a complex work of the region, of the departments within this city municipality, some personal contacts between the local authorities, within the dignitaries of the city and oblast. For example, we have this ACUs. Can you share some tools or mechanism how to attract investors? How I have heard personally so many reports of you, but still I would draw a conclusion that's a complex of professionalism of managers that work on sites in regions, that somehow to be in the right place in the right time. That's why some concrete 100% successful solution I couldn't share with, but I have a question to Dmytro. Dmytro, are you still online? Because I would like to ask you a question. Yes, I'm here. Well, we are very thankful to you for your great work. And as for regulating, I heard and we read, of course, that there will be this process of registering industrial parks is quite it was not easy, it was not simple, but now it is still it will be still be more complex. And why should we re-register those three parks that we have in order to use the benefits? And why did you decide that you need to re-register? Okay, that's perfect answer to my question, because somehow, well, that's what you. Well, the law foresees that you will need to confirm that that at the moment you have been registered from those 51 registered industrial parks. Well, actually, there are half of them there that are not going to work. That is why it's not lots of things that you need to confirm, but it's not we talk about re-registering. There will be some need to confirm some of the activities, but also you need to understand as a point of view that we at first we would somehow we couldn't perceive ourselves, but that's what our financial ministers what they talk. When the state was not investing money, then we left it as it was. But now somehow the parks that will apply to get the financing from the state, so the state needs to have some guarantee that that it will not become a tool of dividing money. That's why there will be some strengthening requirements as to the industrial parks. Well, we have 3 industrial parks that we have invested about 80 million hryvnias. We have invested as a municipality, and we have some 160 million more that we need to invest. That is why we would be very thankful if you suggest us some working mechanism that we can get. We as a community, as a amalgamated community, can ask to restore, to refund us those expenses that we already invested in industrial parks, so that we could use it from the next year. Well, the working mechanism will be needed if the if the government will. If the cabinet of minister will allocate the funds that will be spent. If the funds will not has not been allocated, then no mechanism will happen. So how we were working on this for this, we gathered together lots of things, lots of member of parliaments. We would be traveling all around Europe. We would be discussing with the Ministry of Economics, with the Ministry of Regional Development, with managing companies, with the mayors of amalgamated communities, and as a result of this, we wrote a draft that has become a foundation of Legal Act. And the same for the decrees and regulations. Somehow that is the way how we are planning to proceed in order so that the mechanism would be practical for all. Well, what about that we pass the floor to our next speaker, Mr. Avrasychuk? I would like to announce some of the numbers that we have calculated, our company has calculated. In Ukraine we can create in the nearest 5 years well, the industrial parks, not about 10,000 hectares of land could be used for industrial parks. Now it's 0.2 thousand hectares that is used. Whether they are working on, in order to work the infrastructure for this industrial parks, we need like $1 billion US dollars. That is 27 billions of hryvnias. That is the amount for funds for the state budget and for the local budget. It's not such a big amount of money. If we plan in a correct way for 5 years, say, then from one point of view, the state can foresee, can plan these funds, and of course not 100% of the amount that need. And in the countries that use these tools, about 20% is financed by the state as a catalyzer, as a driver. That is $200, 200,000 euros, or 6 billions of hryvnias. And so if the legislators think that 2 billions of hryvnias annually for 5 years, that is an amount which would be enough, that will be amount according to international standards. So 1 billion invested in infrastructure, and 20% of it the state needs to invest. The important thing that they would not go back with this decision, because as far as I know, Mykola, I know that the municipality of Vinnytsia have been investing in the development of industrial park, in development of infrastructure, and is going to invest more and more. And I would like to hear from you whether the state, how the community would proceed with investing the money and get the money somehow from the state budget, and how the how the parks should have the ready-made infrastructure so to attract investors. And well, have you made any calculations, or have you been doing any calculations, and have you been aware in order to invest in the parks? And I'm sure of it because I know, because of calculations we have made, the most profitable thing to invest is for.
Good afternoon, everyone's present is Mykola Havrashuk. It's the deputy mayor of Khmelnytsky, and the network of industrial parks has been developed and is very good. And actually, what you've said, what is actually important, it's sort of very simple. If the mayor worries about the community, he will worry about the industrial park, because it's really efficient, and it has shown its efficiency in other cities. You don't need to invent a bicycle. In this case, you simply need to get the practices and simply continue working in this field. Speaking about the industrial parks and speaking about why we need that, I will just boast a bit, but simply a few days ago, there was a rating of competitiveness level of the cities of Vinnytsia, where Khmelnytsky has become the absolute leader in terms of the competitiveness of the city of Vinnytsia. It was actually it's the rating where the business is taken, and more than 4,000 representatives of private entrepreneurs, legal entities, and they asked them how comfortable it is to work with the city authorities and the city council, and how does the city council treat the business. And it's the second year in a row that we are the winners in this list. And for us, the industrial park and its creation and its efficient launch of its work, it's very important, because the business trusts the authorities in Khmelnytsky, and we really want to keep helping the businesses and together with the business to move in the vector of development of our community. In Khmelnytsky, when we started creating the Khmelnytsky Industrial Park, unfortunately now it exists only on paper, and then I'll tell you more about that in detail. We were focused with the land plot. I will speak now about the practical things. Maybe some cities are listening to who do not know what it is. And so before we had amalgamated communities, the getting the plot land was really a serious issue. Now it would be much easier to get that. When we get 24 villages who joined the Khmelnytsky, it was much easier to choose the land plot, and at that time we've chosen the land plot. And now 90 hectares have been now allocated under close to Khmelnytsky for the industrial park. After that, we've passed all the registration procedures, a lot of bureaucratic procedures that we've passed, and now we are in the register. And here and now in Khmelnytsky, we are at the stage of actually designing and connecting to the networks and the supply networks, infrastructure networks. The price of this construction and connection is about 70 million hryvnias. That means that when we speak about gas supply, water supply, energy supply, and the roads take up the largest amount of the money required because we need the roads directly leading to the industrial park. Currently, we have now the competition for the managing company. It will be a private managing company, and until the 20th of September, we still get proposals from the managerial companies, and on the 21st of September, we are going to have a meeting of the competitive committee, and I hope that we will elect and select the managerial company who will then deal with our industrial park. So the city authorities have made a decision that next year we will allocate the funding for that, and during the next several years, I do hope it will give a very positive sign regarding the draft law, and I really hope that this money at the level of the state will be allocated and will help the industrial parks, because Khmelnytsky also hopes for this support, but we do understand that the main burden will lie on the local budget, and the motives are very simple, because while returning to the cooperating with the business, any invested hryvnia in the industrial park can really pay back quite quickly, even including the PAT tax, but don't even speak about that, because at the local level for the industrial park, we put the rate for 0.1%. So for the 90 hectares, the managerial company will pay 30,000 hryvnias a month. This is an additional motivator that was at the state level. Now we didn't have it at the state level, but we made it in the local level, even not taking into consideration the PAT. We still believe that 5 up to 7 years, these investments can be returned. Thank you. I would just once again like to repeat for the broadcasting and for the future hearing and listening, so we can see a very correct and proper approach of the city. They set practically a 0% rent for the land. This again, once again, meets the international practices, because the land in the non-developed areas doesn't cost anything, and simply creates an illusion of a certain income of the local budget. They bid on creating jobs, because as far as I understand, you require a certain amount of jobs from the managerial company who's going to attract the investments. One of the requirements is 5,000 jobs, because the international practices says that if we calculate our area, that's what it is. Then, so in our requirement is a highly qualified specialist, innovative fields, and that should be represented in innovative fields and branches of economy to be presented in the and 50 million euro the managerial company should attract within the first 5 years. That's the strategy that we've developed for the next 5 years from the start of the work, but from this beginning when we finish all the works on creating the network. So practically it's $500,000 per hectare. The international practice says that this really means not even innovative business, this means even much simpler business even, and the legislatures actually said that you can get involved into the processing industry and the industrial park. So that's, in my opinion, I think you could set even a higher rate. You could say it at least $3 million per hectare within the framework of those technologies that are going to get into Ukraine, because we are not speaking about like space technology and space development technologies, but still it will be quite simpler technologies. But we see quite a bright example of how the city authorities are trying to change the situation with the employment in their city. And another question is, are you planning to open several industrial parks, or are you planning to focus on one industrial park? Because even 5,000 jobs, even though it's created very quickly, it does not cover the full employment demand. You will not return the migrants, the labor migrants, because for that you need to create actually 50,000 jobs. I speak about landlords. I understand that the problem is not only of Khmelnytsky but of other cities. We have the chance to move forward into creating other parks. Of course, this park is now a priority because a lot of money needs to be invested in it, but also we are planning on the development of other industrial parks of various formats. And now our next question, once again, is to Mr. Kiselevsky. Of course, we do know that it is planned that by the new year, at least the information was given like that in open sources, that the draft laws 5688 and 5689 are going to be adopted. Tell us about these draft laws. Speak about their history. I will tell you that it's already the third attempt to pass these laws. What are the chances? Because we are all now nervous and tense and waiting for these draft laws to be passed, and what may be some other stimuli being planned for reliving and reviving the industrial parks which are not functioning, because no matter where we go, we have 50 industrial parks and they are not working properly. So we have industrial parks, but there is no work. So could you please tell us what else apart from these two draft laws are planned by the legislators? So what good or bad things should we be waiting for?
Well, let me tell about those things. That the last convocation of Verkhovna Rada, they have been working on this tax and financial stimuli, and even this convocation we have been registering the drafts of the project, but not at the end of the previous, not at the beginning of this convocation. We have we have been stopped because of the tax administration. They have been seeing the industrial pacts as a possibility that people would use the situation in the wrong way, but somehow we succeeded to come to a compromise and to think about those difficulties that would prevent from using of industrial parks from malfunctions. So those legal drafts of the laws that are going to be passed, that have been worked out with the help of several specialists, and we hope that within the tax committees it will be easier to discuss them, that somehow the way to pass them will be easier than with those previous. We hope, and we have been working to pass these laws by the end of the year, because if we don't pass them by the end of the year, but if we do them in January, then they will be valid the next year, because we will not be able to change the budget and the taxes to which municipality either or to the state that they are going to be paid. What is important things that we foresee, that is that the participants will be freed from the import VAT, from the tax for the equipment, and the possibility for the municipalities and regional authorities to take together these taxes. As for those equipment that will be imported, the companies will only be able to work on it. They will not be able to lease it to sell it. With all the profits that should be that will be obtained, they should be either reinvested or they shouldn't be distributed as dividends. If you need to pay the dividends, you need to return the stimulus that you have taken from the state. When we adopt those two drafts plus the laws that have been already adopted, what will we have as a result? We'll have a land parcel for industrial use, so industrial premises, that somehow for the cost of the municipality, of the region, or the state, there will were supplied the engineering networks. So somehow not tomorrow, but in the future, the investor will be able to get the funds being freed of the future taxes, and the future participant will be freed from the VAT input and from the tax from the equipment. And it seems to me that it's quite a good proposal that want to start to launch the production. And if you mention that it's good for small and middle business, well, big business, great business, somehow they will not go to industrial parks. They will use the mechanism of investment nannies or facilitators. Well, it's very difficult to imagine that somehow somebody will be building the processing facilities far from the raw materials production. So it's more for small and middle enterprises. Well, there are some more numbers to add that maybe not were mentioned. Well, as industrial management company calculated, well, $1 invested by the state will result in $6-7 of investments from the local or foreign investors. So it's something that the state should think about. And as for the municipalities, I was very happy to hear the position of Khmelnytsky. I think that industrial parks, that they can be good stimulus and good drivers for the communities in order to attract to attract investors, to have the new working places, and that will fill the budget with the taxes. So actually that can result in 50%. Well, taking about the area multiplied by 50 new working places multiplied by average monthly salary, and that is what is the pension fund and what is the tax that the municipality will have invested in their city budgets. That's somehow what should be taken into account by the mayor of the municipality that is building or investing in the industrial park, and that is the tool that we are going to give to the municipalities, to the amalgamated communities, that how they can increase their profits. Well, I think that next year or in a year, Danil Hetmantsev that have been fighting against the industrial parks, and I believe that in a year or two that he will be actually as the best one in supporting this industrial parks, because it's actually the territories with a special financial mode that and if we talk about Vietnam or Korea, half of their profits they get in such industrial parks, because it's practically the best areas where the one can control the company. The Ukrainian businesses they talked about good possibilities for helping and getting support from the company, and there was a businessman from Romania that mentioned that please just don't mess with us, please leave us alone, and we as business will succeed ourselves. And as for me, talking about investors, it's 500,000 working places and lots of land, multiplied by 3 or 5 depending on the sector. There will be actually 2 or 3 million of working places that we here in Ukraine need in order to return our people working abroad. They would come to Ukraine. So do you think that the fiscal authorities change their position? Well, if talking about the legislators specializing in fiscal laws, well, we have been drafting these laws together with them, and we have this special work group and that's how we worked out the special mechanism in order to restrict just the fake industrial park, and that's how we want to control the stimulus that the country is going to invest, that this system will be protected from malfunction. And if our calculations are right, and if Ukrainian municipalities will be able to use this stimulus as the legislators offer them, we hope that the tax authority, fiscal authority will change their mind, and the life will show, the future will see the show. The next question I would like to address to Svetlana Yarova. Your center, I wanted to name it agency, but then remembered Dnipropetrovsk Agency for Development. You mentioned that your center has been quite efficient, but well, you didn't reveal all your secrets, whether you fooled your investors or bring them bouquets of flowers, or how does it appear here in Vinnytsia? How you knock to the mayor or to the governor? Well, what we need, what we lack, so that such agencies, centers as yours would be functioning successfully. And as the speakers from here represented at the panel, that the city of Khmelnytsk, they would suggest it's a private company, private management company, and you're a municipal company involved in management, and sometimes like you mentioned that you as a municipal company has been live in taking care of investors. What is lacking in order to be successful to reach the aims, to reach the goals? It's quite high scale tasks that have been sent.
It's a very maybe somehow negative atmosphere has been created about industrial parks. Actually, industrial parks, they work. 50 industrial parks that not one is working. We have 3 industrial parks and all of them are working. Aggravation starting from 2012 using the law that used to be without having those super assets and super bonuses. We've already attracted 5 real companies. One plant has been working for 2 years. The second plant actually started the construction in May 2021, and 3 more companies already have in the. You have to go to Khmelnytsk. You have the wonderful conditions. The renting is 0 and only 50 million. And it's better. We have better conditions in Venice. So we have 90 hectares like in Khmelnytsk, but we already have a functioning industrial park with the networks. We are planning to attract actually first the networks and then attract the investors. So far we've spent 80 and we are planning to make 160 to make everything perfect, and we already have actually to move step by step, not to understand that you're going to invest 350 million in that plot and then start looking for the investor. It's a process. It's a very joint and common process. You can't say that they're like lines. Whether the Municipal Center for Innovation is working, so maybe let's have a look. Maybe a click, or where is it? I would make a very briefly make a presentation of our work. I would like to say it's actually joint work. Yes, actually, do you want to say that? Well, actually, if we speak about movement, yes, it really does move actually in parallel, so we can't say that we are waiting for a long period of time. Of course, if we would be waiting, we wouldn't be actually now selecting a managerial company. Of course, we do move in the direction. Actually, I'm joking. I do everything correctly. I'm actually joking. I'm actually telling you the real story that is out next to us, and you can take an example from us. And actually, we really add a bit more positive part into the story about the industrial parks. I'd actually read in Kiselevsky in Ukraine, out of 51 industrial parks, functioned, only 8 are with the attracted investors. So with our Ukraine, there are 8. That means that we have only 5 industrial parks left. For the rest, it's just it's a rhetoric question, yes, but whatever. So I had actually no chance to present to your park, so you don't answer the questions. So you move to the questions to the people's deputy and deputy mayor. So actually, what lacks? If everything is great, then we are going to recommend and the legislators to write down that only municipal owned enterprises should be actually managerial companies for managing the industrial parks. For me, it was very difficult, the procedural part, because pencils I should buy through tender. I had a problem with the attraction of high-quality staff for 10,000 hryvnias. It was very hard to find a person who speaks two languages or the person who has an experience of working in an agency and so on and so forth. So it was very hard to buy high-quality professionals with the salary that I was offered. Actually, it was difficult me. So you have no problem. Of course, we do have these problems, but what can we change by if we share by complaining and saying yes, it's wrong? The Verkhovna Rada actually works faster than we expected, and we are very grateful for them, and we work with them. What I would like to show the example of our work, of having what conditions that we have. It's not easy to work as a communal enterprise. Maybe the privately owned enterprise also have to actually pass all the 7 circles of bureaucratic hell to register and get into the documentation with the detailed planning of the territory. There is a whole range and list of questions which slow down the quick and rapid pace of development of industrial parks in Ukraine. But these issues can and be dealt with. And having those conditions that we have in Ukraine during the last 10 years, Vinnytsia attracted powerful investors. It created 3 industrial parks. It's really sort of resembles the presentation of the governor. Actually, I didn't have this. That was the presentation of the mayor, okay, and actually jointly together with the then head of the regional state administration, as I've mentioned already. So we don't have any magic tool. There is a complex work and professionalism of many people, of national agencies and people's deputies and the cabinet of ministers, and only together we may do such attractions and make such an accompaniment in support of the investor. Do we still have the picture? All in all, the company of the UBC is already working. Every fridge that you can see in a shop, so that you can see in a supermarket, 80% of them are made on this green cool production in Vinnytsia. The head company started its construction on the 19th of May, and altogether they're planning to build 3 plants. They're going to make a unique mechanism. It's not even a mechanism. They're going to create on the first plant the equipment for winter sports. It's the skis, head boots. It will be some innovative boot. It will be with a special gel filling that would fully anatomically adapt to the form and the shape of the foot, which will decrease the traumatic effect. And so this actually, the NES Group is this unique project of the distribution plant, which would allow to connect to the network, actually, without the payment for the connection. And actually, the agri-oil, it's a processing plant. They produce lecithin and high quality lecithin, which has now been produced in India. And in order to decrease the logistic line, they would like to place the production in Vinnytsia, and they've already started it and the works. And the TCS company, they make plastic blocks for the monolith concrete constructions, and they are planning to save the countries of Africa with their products, because these constructions are very popular there. And using these these benefits that we've had, and we thank that legislation for what they've done, and we thank these lawmakers that they will create even better conditions. But I cannot say what is better, the commercial or the privately owned or communal enterprise is better. So actually, staff and the people, they mostly determine how effective the company is. So yes, so really the people.
Well, even the walls help you at our stadium, that you are on your field, that helps you win. Now we are talking from one side about practical things. On the other hand, I see that the deputies, the people deputies, they understand the fundamental strategy of development of industrial parks in Ukraine and those 10,000 hectares somehow that we named in our research paper. And now they seem to have the mass, to have the form, some concreteness. Somehow we see them as a tool to fill our budget, to create new working places. And for Ukraine, that's the optimum option. That if we talk about the strategy of creating industrial parks in Ukraine, Mr. Mykola, will your strategy change related to business, as to business? Because I wouldn't want that the industrial parks would be transformed into a panacea, into a magical medical agency that we would hope for, that we would be talking over, then we'll forget, and then somehow in some years we'll say, oh yeah, we have been talking about it, we have been investing in infrastructure and they are not working. Well, how you change and how it happens, how your relations with business people change, how they are transformed, because somehow we offer them a set of services so that they would be feeling comfortable when they come, for example, to Vinnytsia, when they approach the city of Vinnytsia. And those who are out of investment parks, they do exist, and they are 90%, and they have been working, and we draw our attention to those 10% that we hope that they will enter the industrial parks. Oh, actually, if we talk about the city of Khmelnytsky in particular and the industrial park, at the moment, well, everybody's quite cautious if we talk about businesses. Not skeptical, but cautious. There is no special optimism about the parks and the legislation, and actually somehow the law that has been adopted, that somehow it was a concrete step from the legislator, and it helped, it empowered, it gave a hope to the businesses. But for so many years that we have been waiting, that somehow we went into standby mode, and the business not skeptical, but was very cautious about entering industrial parks, about change of our policy, about sales strategy. Yes, we do change, and we change the strategy. Now it has been written to 2025, and considering the state we have now and the milestone that we are referring, that we will be writing a very understandable strategy for the years 2025-2030, and also talking about Khmelnytsky. Why I mentioned cautious, because we got about 20 signals from existing businesses in Khmelnytsky that they are ready to relocate to industrial parks, and they are quite cautious. But we have a necessity to relocate several production facilities from one part of the Khmelnytsky. There are several production facilities just in the center of the city of Khmelnytsky, and it would be quite favorable somehow when creating this industrial park. We create some favorable creations, and somehow that creates an option that forms an option for those production facilities that are located in the centers to move. Well, we have less than 10 minutes left. Let me thank to our speakers for the previous questions, and one more question to all of them. Of course, we would like to talk about more distant long-term perspectives, but what each of you think, what do you foresee forecast in 5 or 10 years of development of industrial parks? Maybe everything will be so brilliant as in Southern Korea or Vietnam, or maybe just it will be so sad as it happened with special economic zones. What will happen with your cities? Okay, so let's talk not about Ukraine in general, maybe about Dmytro Davidovich, but let us express a few words about the visions that you see for your cities. Well, talking shortly, we believe in perspectives. That is why we move in this way. It's quite good perspectives. We have good focus, but it's sadder if we see how the budget, the city budget is formed for each year. That is why even with all the optimism we have about the industrial parks, but still lots of investment should be done. And we see that every year the budget is restricted with different things, different issues like education and some kind of stimulus, transportation, and all these things. They take the funds from the budget and the funds that might be allocated for the industrial bank. For the industrial parks, and the budget is being cut because of legislative initiatives that would be somehow dictated from above. That is why, from the point of view of industrial parks, we are quite optimistic about its development, but we need it's more than 300 million hryvnias that we need to invest it. So it depends on the dynamics of the of the city budget that is going to invest it. And also we hope for the future, and we hope for the future support from the state, which will trigger the process. And Svetlana? I can't but agree. As the head of the budget commission, I really feel this pain every year, and for the last 6 years I have been feeling the same pain, because the budget for the development has been decreasing each year. It is being cut and cut. Oh, practically we started from the optimistic things, and we finish with the sad reality. But within the 3 minutes that I would like to share the best practices, how we can use the industrial premises that will be left after the production facilities will be relocated to industrial parks. And I have here the second presentation, if I'm allowed. One more minute. Well, we have the same situation. We have lots of brownfields within the center of the cities. One of them is the jewelry giant of the Soviet Union, but it was in the past. Nowadays, the facilities that belong to the jewelry plant, well, somehow in some premises there are still the jewelry production plant. Some premises were given to the university, Donetsk National University, that relocated from Donetsk. But well, some facilities that we allocated for the industrial park. How you are going to register? Well. We will not be registering as industrial park. We planned how to make a business incubator, how to train children. When your son or daughter can come with the idea that they noted on a piece of paper, just on a napkin, and somehow but talking about registering, if there are 10 hectares and for the last 5 years they have not been used, those premises, we can register those brownfields within the city as industrial parks. And if it is going to be some kind of training center and you are going to export the microscopes, then you'd better to register. Well, we have here 3 floors, and I don't know whether the legislator will allow us to register it, but somehow we can use these premises for such training hubs. And I would like to add So in 5 years, but still I would like to prove, let me prove what is my vision, what it will happen in 5 years. It's a complex work of industrial works and businesses that have been functioning outside of industrial parks and technological parks, because big businesses that will be located in industrial parks, they can use the services of those joint ventures located in technological parks, and those technological parks, they can grow those unicorns, those unicorn companies that will register their businesses in Ukraine, that will develop in Ukraine, that will get investment in Ukraine, and will develop up to big companies and sell all over the world. Start working in Ukraine, pay taxes to Ukraine, and sell globally. Thank you.
Okay, Dmitro, are you still with us online? Unfortunately, we don't already have connection with Dmitro Kisielewski, so then I will now take on the role of Samanya. First of all, I would like to thank Ukraine Invest for a very dynamic forum, and really, as Luridem presented the third forum conduct, and if you plan to conduct any further ones, I think it would be interesting to really make, maybe on special regimes, to make a scientific practical forum, because really what I can see at least 3 recommendations. First of all, it's regarding Khmelnytsky, so you shouldn't use 300 million hryvnias. I don't say about whether you have the money in the budget or you don't have the money in the budget. The practice is like that. So if you actually put up at least 10% of the industrial parts, then on conditions of public-private partnership, your company should attract a private company, and believe me that they will find that. And also there are certain issues that need to be like legislators have already switched off and actually logged out, but we still need to actually deal with it. As for Svetlana, really you should discuss of how bonuses can be received by the cluster, where you had an R&D center which cooperates with the productions, with the industries, and the third part is actually on where the products are being actually directed at and aimed at and exported. So this Law 4416, which are now being welcomed so happily in its first edition, which was changed, so the support of export has been completely removed from it, and this once again it's another step for a legislator to actually make on the basis of the industrial parks in order to simplify the system of attraction of the investors, especially international investors, as the stimulation of export, like for example tax-free or VAT-free delivery of raw materials, and actually some special maybe like customs area and so on and so forth. So these are the few recommendations that arise in order to improve the work in the field of the industrial parks. And on my behalf, there is a connection with Kisielewski. Dmitro Davidovich actually was planning to draw conclusions instead of you, but actually your word is what will happen in 10 years in the field of the development of industrial parks in Ukraine. Thank you, well, actually, you started speaking so nicely about what I was planning to speak about. Well, actually, so first of all, what is most primary? When we take these two tax and customs laws, we have a homework set for us. We need to deal with the possibility creating industrial parks on the territory of state enterprises like the space, dealing in the space industry and the defense industry, because they have the specific form of actual land management. According to the current system, they are not able to create industrial parks on their territories, even though they have the possibility and desire to do that. So we are going to deal with those issues later. Then, if we speak about the horizon, the 5-year horizon, I believe that the municipalities, with the help of the industrial park, become the players in attraction of investment. So they will become really real rights and powers and how we'll be able to use these powers, whether these powers are enough or not. I believe that the heads of large cities and actually heads of capable communities will be able and successful in attracting investments because it's their money and which they always lack, as we've heard now. And secondly, I believe that industrial parks is not the only initiative that is useful for the development of the industry. There are also other initiatives, the main feature of which is supposed to be that they create new markets. So, for example, I speak about localization, and this is the requirement of public procurements and the local condition. The organization creates a new market, and now the state can, for example, purchase a Belarusian train and a French locomotive, and this is wrong, and we have to fight it so that when the state actually deals with it. So, for example, the people who build the construction and actually builds the capacities here will have additional access to this market. And the third thing that you've already said is the development of industrial. So all the Asian targets, first they created conditions for being able to development of the production inside, and then they forced these companies to export. They called it export discipline. They get bonuses in exchange for the export. If you do not export, you do not get any additional stimulants. So there should be additional stimuli for the export and other vectors of the industrial development and active role of municipalities. These are the three vectors of how the situation is going to develop with the industrial parks and with the industrial development in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you to the patient audience offline, the audience who stayed with us online, and I thank Ukraine Invest and I thank Svetlana and Mikola for very in-depth and active and dynamic discussions. I believe that we speak about impartiality of both you and our audience to this topic. Thank you. Thank you to our partners. I'll remind you that Ukraine Invest Talks is organized by the Governmental Office on Attraction and Support of Investments together with the Vinnytsia Regional State Administrators. They organize Thank Instella System and the RADI system.